Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today I'll be talking about the new Face a Villainous Choice mechanic from the most recent set. For such a conceptually simple mechanic, there's actually a lot of rules nuance here, as you'll see shortly. For starters, what is this mechanic? The idea is that you can force your opponent to choose between two negative options. So, like with the Great Intelligence's plan, there's a choice between discarding 3 cards or else letting your opponent cast a free spell. Now, normally when you're making a choice as part of a spell or ability's resolution, it's against the rules to choose something that's illegal or impossible. For example, Painful Quandary gives you a choice about whether you want to discard a card or not. And it says something bad will happen if you choose not to. If you have no cards in hand, it would be impossible for you to discard a card, meaning that you would be unable to choose the option where you discard. I made another video about this rule a while back, and I encourage you to check it out if you'd like some more background on how this rule works. Villainous choices play by their own rules though, specifically this one, which says that if you're facing a villainous choice, it's explicitly allowed for you to choose an option where some or all of the actions cannot be performed, in which case you'll only do as much as is possible. That means that if your opponent plays the Great Intelligence's plan and you don't want them to be able to play a free spell, you can choose to discard 3, even if you don't have any cards to discard. Think of it this way. You're a kid and you just woke up on Saturday morning. You're ready to go outside and play. Okay, that's a lie. You're ready to stay inside all day playing video games. But your mom comes up and offers you a villainous choice between 2 lists of chores to do before you can play. Let's say that one of those lists has emptying the dishwasher on it. If you happen to know that your dad already emptied the dishwasher last night, then you might want to pick that list. Nobody would try to think twice and say that you shouldn't pick that list because I can't do all the chores on it. You didn't choose to empty the dishwasher, all you did was choose a list and commit to doing all the chores on that list. If it happens to be the case that one of the things on the list that you chose isn't possible to do, your mom can't get mad at you for that. You just have to do all the chores that are possible. This analogy works really well because it turns out there's another case where facing a villainous choice doesn't work quite the same way as normal instructions on a spell or ability. And that happens when you have multiple players making villainous choices all at the same time. To start out with, let's take a look at how Magic normally handles such cases. So if you were to play a Smallpox, the correct way to resolve that spell would be for everybody to lose 1 life all at the same time, and then in turn order, everybody chooses a card to discard, and then everyone discards at the same time. Then again in turn order, everybody chooses a creature to sacrifice, and everyone sacrifices at the same time. And finally, we do this process one more time for lands. I made a whole video where I talked about how this works for the related card Crack the Earth a while back, and I recommend that you check that one out if you're interested in a fuller explanation. I chose Smallpox for this example though because the difference that I wanted to highlight happens when we have multiple players performing a process at the same time. Usually in a case like that, you would expect that everyone will complete the first step and then everyone will complete the second step and then so on. Based on that, you might think that for something like Ensnared by the Mara, then you would have everybody choose one of the options and then everybody would exile their cards and then the casting and damage dealing part would happen. But it turns out that because this card has the players make a villainous choice, it works a little bit differently. As you can see here, multiple players make their own choices in a sequence, not together. And before the next player in the sequence gets to choose, all of the actions associated with the first choice are going to get performed. So the way that this spell would actually resolve would be for the first player to choose between giving up a free spell or taking damage, and then that player will exile, and then the casting or damage dealing part will happen as appropriate. After that, the next player in turn order will do the whole process, and so on. This has some major implications for this spell and others like it. For example, each player will know all of the choices made for any spells that were cast this way before they face their own villainous choice. Or with Davros, each player will get to see which cards the players earlier in the sequence discarded, which is a major change from how some other similar effects work. I think the reasoning behind this rules is that the rules team wanted to make facing a villainous choice be like drawing a card, where it is not possible to have multiple instances going on at the same time. Just like 2 players cannot draw a card at the same time, there's a rule that says the same thing for villainous choices. There's also another rule that says that if the Valeyard replaces facing 1 villainous choice with 2, then that second choice is spliced directly after the first, rather than happening at the same time. And I think that pretty much covers it. Ready for a few challenge questions to check your understanding? First up, let's say that Amy plays a This Is How It Ends against Nick's Grizzly Bears, while Nick is at 3 life. Can Nick choose to lose 5 life and still live because he isn't capable of losing that much? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Even though it is not possible to pay more life than you have, it certainly is possible to lose more life than you have. If Nick chooses to lose 5 life, he'll go to -2 and probably lose the game immediately afterwards, unless the creature he was saving was a Platinum Angel. Interestingly, the opposite trick is possible, and if Nick did not have any creatures, he could choose to shuffle another creature into his library in order to avoid having to lose 5 life, which is not something that would normally be possible. On the other side of the equation, if Nick had a Platinum Empyrean, then he could choose to lose 5 life and end up not losing any. Again, something that's only possible because this card poses the choice as a villainous one. Next up, let's say that you have Missy and that we're on the City of the Daleks. Do you just win the game during your end step or what? Okay, so first of all, if you've never heard the term Chaos Ensues before, then you might be surprised to learn that this is not a new mechanic that was introduced in the Doctor Who set. Rather, it's a keyword specifically available only in the Plane Chase variant. See, all of these planes have an ability marked on them with this special symbol that triggers whenever chaos ensues. By the way, the normal way for chaos to ensue would be for a player to roll that special symbol on the planar die. Some older planes will actually say that they trigger when you roll that chaos symbol, but these have all been errated to say chaos ensues. But I digress. If you have a Missy trigger, then in turn order, all of your opponents are going to have to choose between taking damage from all your artifact creatures and letting you draw a card and get a chaos trigger. So every chaos trigger that you get is going to result in 3 artifact Dalek tokens for you, which could add up to a lot of damage, right? Well, not necessarily. See, remember that all of the villainous choices are going to be made during the resolution of Missy's one triggered ability. And anything that triggers during the resolution of a spell or ability, for example, anything that triggers when chaos ensues here, will not go onto the stack until after all of the steps in that resolution have been completed. Therefore, none of the Chaos Ensues triggers are going to get to help you get more artifacts to discourage any later opponents to choose the damage over the card. What will actually happen is that the first opponent will either take damage or give you a card, then the second and third opponents will have the same option, and then you will have the appropriate number of Chaos Ensues triggers go onto the stack. The amount of damage each opponent is set to take will be the same for each opponent unless you jump through a bunch of hoops. To add insult to injury, the time when you have to sacrifice all of the Dalek tokens the City of the Daleks gives you is at the beginning of the next end step. Not your next end step, the next end step. Meaning that those tokens will stick around until the end of your first opponent's turn, and then they'll get exterminated. They won't ever get to attack, and they won't count towards your total number of artifacts the next time for that trigger, the next time that Missy triggers. And because I know that some people are probably going to ask about it, sadly, if you are not playing a Plane Chase game, then there's probably not going to be any triggered abilities that happen when chaos ensues, meaning that part of Missy's ability will probably not be doing anything relevant. Okay, last up, Amy uses Hunted by the Family against Nick's Grizzly Bears and Olive's Soul Warden. If both players let Amy get a copy, will she gain 1 life? And to answer this one, we'll recall that if multiple players would face a villainous choice at the same time, that's handled by having them make those choices and complete all of the associated actions in turn order. With the information given in the original problem statement and the knowledge that Nick happens before Olive in turn order, the token copy of Nick's Grizzly Bears will enter before the token of Olive's Soul Warden, meaning that Amy will not gain life. On the other hand, if Olive instead opts to have her Soul Warden become a 1/1 white human, then she will gain 1 life from Amy's Grizzly Bears token before her Soul Warden loses all its abilities. Whew, that was a lot of information to take in, right? Facing a Villainous Choice certainly has my vote for the most sleeper OP Judge Tower mechanic of 2023. Hopefully this video shines some light on the most common types of interactions that you'll be facing with it so that you can rule with confidence. If there's any other questions with this mechanic, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll try my best to answer them. But that's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling, but until then, I hope you have a great day.